Alright, the lesson that I am teaching in this video came from the Arty Teacher at theartyteacher.com. I did a search for Jasper Johns and I got this lesson right here. Paid for it and really enjoying it so far, and I wanted to make a little video for my students to follow along and get even more out of it if they can when they're at home. So go to the Arty Teacher, theartyteacher.com, and buy this lesson. All right, we are learning about Jasper Johns. We're doing a little Jasper Johns watercolor painting. It's kind of fun. And these are the objectives. We're going to learn about Jasper Johns. We're going to develop practical watercolor skills. We're going to learn to grade 8 color pencil. We're going to create artwork that utilizes harmonious and analogous and contrasting colors. These are the basic steps. You're going to pick 4 numbers and trace them. You're going to paint in using analogous watercolors, and you're going to use color pencil to do it. So I'm also teaching what analogous colors are. This is my analogous color chart. It is a basic color wheel. It's also got cool colors and warm colors. And when I put this little spinner on it, then it tells us what some analogous colors are. If your favorite color is red, then you can use those 3 colors: red violet, red, or red orange. Maybe your favorite color is yellow, then you could use yellow orange, yellow, and yellow green. But the real definition of analogous is colors that are side by side on the color wheel. And if we keep our color scheme limited to just those 3 colors that are side by side, then you end up with a very beautiful set of colors that work well together. So here is red, red violet, and red orange. I printed these numbers off of the lesson plan that I bought from theartyteacher.com, and so there's numbers 1 through 0, 1 through 9, and 0.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9.
And if you want to move my skeleton here, if you want to do a 6, then you just turn your paper upside down and you put it over the 9 and it becomes a 6. And then 0. And I've set up this station so that my students can trace it onto their drawing paper, and then we are going to watercolor it. I've also set up another station right here in the hallway using this light table and all of the numbers. So I've got the 2 stations, the one which is my windows in my classroom and this light table. Because of the way the numbers fit on the paper, this paper is really large, this paper is a little bit smaller. You can't just put it in the corner like this. All of them will be in the corner, or you can't put it down here in this corner, you know. So I try to make a rectangle this size right here to fit, to put in the middle. And so I printed this out, and then I measured it, and it is 8.5 inches tall by 6 inches wide. So I've come up with a formula for drawing the border on here that makes it work out right. And that formula is for the top and bottom borders, it is 1 3/4 or 1.75 inches. So I put a border at the top. This is the top of my paper. That is 1 3/4. Then I put another border at the bottom of the paper. Turn my paper all the way around so I can work from left to right. Put my 0 on the edge, put a mark on the 1 3/4 mark. Come down here, put my 0 on the edge and mark on 1 3/4. Turn my ruler to connect those 2 lines, and I draw a line. This is my bottom border and my top border. Now I want to do the left and right side of the paper, and this measurement's a little bit different. I'm going to put a 0 on the edge and put a mark at 1 1/2. Come down here, put a mark at 1 1/2. Make sure the 0 is on the edge of the paper. Turn my ruler, put my pencil on the ruler, draw a line. That's the border on the left. Rotate my paper all the way around. Put the 0 on the edge of the paper, put a mark on 1.5. Scroll down here, put a mark, the 0 on the edge, and put a mark on 1.5. If I have gone too fast for you, please feel free to slow the video down or pause or whatever you need to do to get it right. When I'm done, I can erase this part of this border.
This part of this border. This part of this border. And this part of this border. I would have just left that off to begin with at the beginning of the assignment, but I didn't know how far over it needed to go, so I just drew it all the way to the edge. There you go.
I'm left with a rectangle in the middle of my paper, which I will now go over with Sharpie pen. You don't have to go over it with Sharpie pen if you don't want to, but I'm going to go over this with Sharpie pen so that you can see it in the camera better. Some of you might prefer to not have a black line. Now I'm going to take a couple of pieces of tape, just small pieces. I don't need a whole lot of tape. Don't waste tape. I'm going to put it at the top of my paper. And then I'm going to take this over to the window to trace my letters. The first number I'm choosing to draw is the 8. I've got little points in the back, on the corners of the rectangle. I'm going to line my picture up with those points. Tape it down and trace it. And the 4. Once you have all of your letters traced, the next thing you're going to do is paint it in. Some things you should know about watercolor. One, it is activated by water. So if you haven't used them yet, you just simply put some water on top of the colors you want to use. If you think you're going to use all of them, go ahead and wet them all down. Second thing you should know is that you don't want them to be terribly thick because they will then be sticky on your paper and you don't want them to be sticky. So constantly be going back to the water to create paint that you can watercolor this in with. You want it to be thin and transparent, and if you want it to get thicker, then you let that dry and put another layer on top of it. The next thing you should know is that if you want to mix up a different color, you can always use this as a mixing tray. So I'm going to put a little bit of blue right here, a little bit more blue, and then if I want to make that a darker blue, I can simply come over here and get a little bit of black and add to that to make another kind of black. You can also mix any of these colors together over here in the tray. I'm just going to use this to make a darker blue. And then when you start coloring it in, it's very tempting to just paint over the whole thing, but that's not what we're trying to do. We actually want to use these things as shapes and fill them in. As I'm looking at this, I realize I made a mistake and I did not trace all of my number 3. So I'm going to go back and do that real quick. I went ahead and painted in 2 of these pictures because they are so easy and so fun and look so good when they're done. I decided to do one with the warm colors, sort of like in the video, like in the project handouts, but I added a lot more variation of color. You're going to paint in each and every section a slightly different color, and you want to jump around the paper and do different parts different ways. So like I do a little bit of yellow here, a little bit of yellow over there, a little bit more yellow over there, and then while that's drying, I want to paint in another section that's not touching a section that I just painted that is wet. If you try to paint a red section next to a yellow section that is wet, that red is just going to leak right into the yellow and spread. And which is alright, it makes a nice effect, but if you don't want it to do that, then you have to work on separate sections at a time and just keep hopping around the paper, and while one section is drying, you paint in another section that's not. Now for the final step, I'm going to choose some colors that contrast with the other colors that I have. In other words, if I have a light color like yellow or orange, I'm going to use a dark color to add some color variation with color pencil. This is the final step, and it's really the thing that kind of makes it complex and beautiful. So your colors do not have to be complementary to the base watercolor colors. Just need to be contrasting. So it could have been a dark black or a dark red, just any color that would go that would contrast well with the underlying color. I also did a second painting, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, and I kind of did it the opposite. I did the colors in blue, and then blues and blue greens, and then I went back with lighter colors in color pencil. All right, so that you can see what this looks like with the opposite, with cool colors as the watercolor base, and then contrasting color pencil on top of that. I've done another one. I'm going to fast forward through this pretty fast so that you can just see how it works. But remember, I'm painting in every other section a different color. I'm not painting in the numbers as a whole. I'm painting in the sections that create